Well, welcome everybody back to Anxiety Simplified, and I am Joanne Williams, and we're here to share some powerful strategies that I've used with my clients as a 30-year mental health professional to lower anxiety simply and to bring them right into your home. So hopefully you can use these in your everyday life. And today, this is part two of talking about some ways to heal our country and the divides we have. And I have a special guest with me, uh, and it is Simon Chadwick, and he has a book for the people that I do want to talk more about and ways for you to find that because I will put it in the show notes. But I do feel like this is timely in the sense that we are talking about what's going on in our country. January 14th, 2021, today, after an armed insurrection at the Capitol was just a week and a day ago. And so in section 2 here, I do want to talk more about strategies we can offer and use to bring us back together as a community, as a neighborhood, as a family, or as a country, and talk some more strategies. So welcome back, Simon.
Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate your educated view, I would call it, as living in apartheid, having a father who really worked. And we really didn't hear the end of that story, and maybe we need to end that. So your apartheid was ended in
It
South
was.
Africa. And maybe you should just finish that a little bit as we go into some of the things that worked there that maybe we can talk about as solutions here, maybe as a place to start.
Well, yes, it did. It ended amazingly, really amazingly. For none of us thought that it would end without bloodshed. My father, by that time, had been exiled.
Oh,
We were banned from the country for many years. But
and can
he
I can
was,
I can
yes.
I ask you how old were you as you went through this with your
I
family?
was, I was in my 20s when this all went down.
And that
Um,
affected you as a young adult? Did they ban
yeah,
you or?
yes, oh yes, they banned me. I for a long part of it, I was acting, particularly when he was arrested. I was acting as his press agent in the UK, making sure that the press there
Okay.
did not forget about him because he was a British citizen, and that it was during the time of the Thatcher government, and she did not want to lift a finger to help. In fact, she said, "I'm not having that bloody communist back here." So the it was a very difficult time. But the key here is that he was working hand in glove with Desmond Tutu,
Oh, he was. Okay.
who remains a dear friend, and between them, Desmond and Nelson Mandela, and so many others, they had a number of principles. One was that they they would be nonviolent.
Okay.
The second was that they would stick together
Oh, okay.
as a group. The third, I think, was that they would speak from a position of love,
Oh my
not
goodness.
from a position of anger. So even though Desmond could get fiery, he was always coming at it from a position of love.
Because he was a minister or whatever, a priest.
He was Archbishop of Cape Town.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
was the top honcho.
Yeah.
So those principles and that nonviolent resistance, together with things like the boycotts in America and in Europe, getting people behind to act, to put pressure on the regime, that was what eventually brought the government to the negotiating table. Those things all combined. And I think, the lessons you can learn from that are that you have to be involved. You can't You can't come at resolving these sorts of situations, and the situation we have today, from a position of anger or hatred or violence. You have to come at it through understanding. You have to understand people's stories. It's funny to think about this, but those white South Africans who wanted power or were in power, they were genuinely frightened. They were genuinely frightened that one day the bloody revolution would come and they would be butchered. It was completely misread.
But that is one of the reasons why they wanted to maintain their power at the same time?
Yes.
Because they were so afraid?
Yes. And so when we look at, people with whom we disagree here, what is their backstory?
How do we do that? Can we talk about what have you seen that works to get at the backstory?
Questions and listening. So when it's very, very, it's in our nature when somebody says something really bizarre to go, you can't believe that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it is.
I don't know how many times I think it in a day, but
yes,
actually what we should be doing is going, well, tell me why you think that. What makes you think that? Where did you learn that? From whom did you hear it? So just to give you a very, very banal example, an ex-neighbor of mine who is not the sort of person that you would think would be a supporter of what's going on right now, is very heavily in their camp. She is a 70-plus-year-old Hispanic woman. When I asked her, why and what do you listen to, where do you get your information, where did you understand this from? She said, I won't look at anything except Fox News. Now, I'm not going to say anything negative about Fox News, except that it's just one line of communication. But you have to understand that to understand where she's coming from.
But then what do you say? Because, from their talk, that's what they're listening to. It's pretty clear because you hear the narrative, if that's what you want to call it, is repeated. It's the exact same phrase that the presidents use, the some of the other politicians have used, or other people. It's exact. It's So what would be the next step when she says Fox News, or what would you think is the next part of that to be able to ask the next question?
My response was, that's interesting. What I really appreciate getting my news from is I like to get news from the BBC and NPR and to broaden my sources.
Places, okay.
And I do me a favor, just listen in to one of those now and again, and tell me what you think. And I've seen a slight softening, not anything to write home about yet, but you certainly can see the cogs are going around. Now, it could be, that's a very banal example, but let me give you another example about how we should not make assumptions. So you could take two families in the same city where the husbands or the wives worked for the same factory, and they have two same children. They're white families, say, same class. Factory closes down. You might expect their reactions to be very, very similar. But then that's not necessarily true. That's an assumption. Because it depends on who is in your circle, what they're talking about, who comes forward to give you support or doesn't, what your family history is, who was influential in your young life. Was it a teacher? Was it a parent or whatever? And when you start diving back into those stories, going back through those stories, you find divergence. And that's where you could have one of those families saying it's all the fault of the company, and one of
Blaming.
them saying it's all the fault of the unions, for example. I mean, it could be that, or whatever you want to say. So you assuming without listening gets us into trouble, and listening without assuming actually paves the way forward.
And so there's another quality is listening.
Mm-hmm.
And I would even add listening without expectations of changing somebody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
You truly want to know. You truly are interested not to just change their mind. But I would wonder too, just continuing the questions on a level, because I had a similar situation with a nice person, a nice friend. I mean, he's kind and all that. But in just a quick conversation, and he has been a Trump supporter, but after some of the last stuff, he's not so much. But he said something about is it not Minnesota, the governor that state capital was just about taken over a while ago.
Michigan.
It
Mm-hmm.
was in Michigan.
Michigan. Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, he said some like swear words about her and her, the way she is, and she's trying to do. And, and I said, do you know her personally?
Hmm.
He didn't know what to say, but it brought it down to how do you know this person if you don't know them personally? And where did you hear that same kind of thing? But it made him kind of stop a little bit, because it was that same kind of thinking. Oh, she's just trying to take rights away. And I wanted to say, would you say that about a strong man, Governor? I didn't, but it made me think that again, there's a bias. If it's a woman, she's a B word. But if it's a man, he's a strong leader. So even there can be a bias. And I know when we talked early, we talked about the women governors or women leaders in the world, like New Zealand and in
Finland.
Finland and
Yeah.
Norway, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But how successful they have been through COVID and this economic issues, and what you described earlier of doing it really with strength, but with love.
Yes.
That's really a strength.
Yes. I think the thing that actually delineates these women leaders, and there are about 8 countries with women leaders that have done really well during COVID. One of them, as you mentioned, was Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who was very strong in her response to COVID. Now, they're lucky. They're 2 islands and they could close down their borders pretty quickly. But she was very, very strong, put them into lockdown very quickly with real penalties. But she did it with empathy. And she's an extraordinarily empathetic leader. Her first press conference or speech to the nation, I think, after the COVID lockdown, she just had a baby. She came into the speech to the country with the baby in her arms and an old T-shirt which was stained with breast milk, and they could identify with her.
Yeah.
When a madman shot up the mosques in New Zealand, she responded with empathy. She said, these people came here to build their lives. They are New Zealanders. They are us. And it was, she assuaged the fear on both sides. So there is a lot to
and connected. I mean, it's a connection with that empathy as powerful way to connect with somebody, to move in a direction. And one of the things I would say to everyone, And women especially. I know we're busy. Everybody's busy and there's so much to do, but recognizing what your true powers are. A strength can be with love, like Desmond Tutu, and that can be a huge. And for men, I would say find your feminine part that is powerful with empathy,
Mm.
because that is a tool we all can use today with our neighbor, with our family member. We just went through the holidays, and it is at the dinner table, instead of the rah, 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 you, bring it back. One of the things I read was, I'm a therapist, and family, they took it back to about marriage therapy. If they had a couple in there, like similar to your family members, you would use I statements. I feel, I am, not you are, you're the problem, you did. Take that blame away and put it back in I care about you more than your political beliefs or your political whatever you're doing right now. I care about you. And that's why I'm saying this to you, because I care. We can all do that.
We can indeed, and I think we also need, though, to show it through action.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think you've said yourself that you need to join groups or to get a group around you. You need it comes back to belonging. It comes back to when you're in that situation and somebody's bullying you or somebody's threatening you, maybe with job loss or whatever, that you need to have your group around you. And we need that in society too. We need to belong.
Absolutely.
And it can be churches, it can be unions, it can be book clubs, it can be whatever you want it to be. And
Zoom groups.
Zoom groups, although I think we're all getting so zoomed out.
I don't
Um,
care. It's our way of connection. We've
it
got to
is,
do it right now, and
it
we'll
is
be out of
indeed.
it soon.
But then, I'll come back to something I said earlier, that if we are belonging to certain groups, then there are groups where the leadership is actually responsible for promoting this healing.
Hmm.
So if I if you belong to a church, is that leader of that church actually seeking to heal, or are they seeking to be divisive or exclusive? So the choice of group makes a difference, and there is a responsibility and an accountability on leaders throughout the country, corporate leaders, religious leaders, political leaders, academic leaders, all to act.
Absolutely.
You cannot sit back.
And I think that is a really important point that I hope everybody really hears. It's time. And even if your action is with your intention alone, I intend to bring this country back to the loving or feeling, because this is a loving country. It's wonderful people. Absolutely. The best. I think we've gone astray in some certain ways and not expecting things from our leadership. But we, even with our intention, we voted with the highest number of votes I think ever before.
Mhm.
People are taking notice. You are standing up for your rights and saying what's important to you. And, I like the word you use with bullying, because I think even children or parents or teachers that are listening, this is the start of a sociopath. This is the start of a narcissist. This is the start of a dictatorship. When you allow a bully, or good people say nothing, is what allows something like that to fester. And I believe that's what we have right now. We have a festered blister that has popped. And now we've got this ooey gooey mess all over us, and we don't have a direction yet. I hope we have a new president who is coming out today, it sounds like, with a financial direction and some specifics on what to do about the economy. So there's a direction, and I think that gives us some security as well. But I would like to also give the listeners what to look for. And in an article I was looking at, that actually they're seeing 20% of our leaders in industry, business, are sociopaths. And 3 of our favorite presidents were seen to have those traits. And so they actually can be traits that we admire. So it is something I think we all could look at ourselves and understand, because there's charisma. It is somebody that can be somebody, who is a con man initially, because you just, but how could he be so whatever? Because he just looks so good or acts so nice for a while. And then, you're in the con, but they crave validation and recognition. And that's why they're doing that. They want the praise. And maybe there's a tendency of ego, of self-centeredness, that really they're looking for you to, kind of come to them and give them what they feel like they deserve. But there's a deficit of empathy. So that's a real clue. Look for that they don't care about you, and they don't. They care about having it look like you do, and a high level of entitlement. And I think you can actually hear each one of those in our current president, and with the lack of leadership to hold him accountable, which, like a bully, when good people say nothing, this is what we seem to have. But look for these kinds of things. I'm a thrill seeker. Look at me. And get revenge. I'm going to look for that. Or I don't even feel any guilt. Or people aren't going to mess with me. These are kinds of words that antisocial people do, and have been shown to be traits in Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt and John Kennedy. And as some of our favorites. So it doesn't have to be a full-blown personality disorder, but there can be traits of this. Without empathy is really the key. And in a corporate leader, like you were saying, Simon, if you see a wrong, how do you just go up against a corporation? But like you said, maybe find a group of other people and go together to HR. Don't do it alone if you feel like, again, your safety is going to be in peril. But when you join together, that is when you do have power. And that's when you can make some changes. It may be slow. And how many years did it take in apartheid? It wasn't that long. I was surprised, but it was 10 years, maybe?
No,
More than that?
It took 45
40. Oh, geez.
years.
Really? So there has to be small steps. So maybe we don't see something immediate, and maybe we don't have immediate, but with it, let's talk just for our last kind of few minutes. What do you see that in this country right now with this insurrection and an impeachment? What do you think some steps that our listeners and viewers could even do for themselves to be able to feel better and feel safe, or lower their anxiety as they feel this? I had to talk to my daughter about her children, my grandchildren, who are 13 and 15. And it made me wonder, what are our children hearing from their parents right now? And that there needs to be, to me, some boundaries about what is said in front of children right now, and an encouraging kind of way when you are, and off from them when you have your fear, so that we can actually help our children not get anxiety disorders right now, because it's already heightened with physical, sickness, economic issues, depression and anxiety now are up to 50% of our population. So we're already there. So if you have any kind of last thoughts, Simon, about what it is you feel like as Americans currently we could start doing, saying, being even to each other, maybe, or to this government or to our leadership? What should we expect of them?
Well, one of my friends saying what they really would like to expect said it'd be so nice to go back to boredom. Um,
Yeah.
you know, being
Instead of
bored with the political
drama.
scenes. Yeah, instead of drama, exactly, the lack of drama. But I think I think holding our leaders accountable, both personally and in groups, we do want them to show competence. We do want them to show empathy. There needs to be. I think we do have somebody coming in who's very empathetic.
Hmm.
And who's suffered tragedy in his own life and understands tragedy. So that's part of it. But another part of it, I think, is when that time comes, to start to reach out to neighbors, to start to, and hopefully the temperature will lower a little bit. We can get together more easily. I have friends on both sides of the aisle that I'd really rather the conversation not be about what the hell is going on, but maybe more about their kids or their vacations or their latest initiative, whatever it may be.
Would you
That
say then to put a limit on the conversations that you have maybe with friends or
I
redirect it?
I think redirect, yes, yes. I mean, total air sucking conversation. Let's have conversations around all sorts of other things, rediscover
Yeah.
ourselves and each
Yeah.
other as human beings.
And our
Then the final,
similarities.
yeah, and the final thing, just to your point about children, I talk to a lot of people who have had this anxiety about talking to their children, and people whose children have inadvertently seen scenes from last Wednesday, for example,
Mm,
and the difficulty of having those conversations. And I agree that it's really that they have to be shielded to some degree. But at the same time, I have immense faith in the young people of today.
I agree.
I think they've shown themselves to be extraordinary. I think they have a very different value set. And so the last word I think I would say is actually, if you've got a teen or somebody in their early 20s, ask them what they would do.
Mm,
Ask them what's important. What are their values? Because that's the generation that's going to come into power in the next 20, 30 years. And even the millennials themselves, I think hold different values and
yeah,
may well start leading the way. So
that's good.
let's engage them.
I love it. That is such a great way to end this, too. There's things we can do. And another one is stop the drama. Don't talk about it. Stop being dramatic and start focusing on what it is you want to create in your life: more calmness, more peace, more love with your neighbors. Let's focus on that as a solution because it works. And this is great, Simon. And I really, really appreciate you being here. And you
Thank
have
you.
yes, and you have a book. And I will put this in the show notes, but would you like to say where they can find this?
Yes, indeed. You can find it on Amazon and you can find it at bndn.com. And, if you do go out and get it, please do leave a review. Us struggling authors really do, and podcasters really do,
Yes.
uh, rely on your reviews. And if you like it, do recommend it to your friends. One thing that has made me immensely joyful about it is that a lot of people who have bought it have been complaining to me that their youngsters have been stealing the book and then giving it to their friends. And so they've had to go out
What
and
a
buy
review.
second and third copies. So
I want to get it and
yeah,
I haven't. And I really
yeah,
wished I had the time to read it before. I am definitely going to get it. That
thank you.
is a great review. Kids, steal this book. For the People, a citizen's manifesto to shaping our nation's future, because it is in their hands. You are so right.
Yep, and if they're even getting a glimpse of what they can
Mhm.
do, that's
Mhm.
fantastic.
And I hope that's what this podcast provided today, is a background with your experience of living this. And I would assume never wanting to experience anything like
Correct.
that, and I'm sure some African American and other indigenous people here would say we do live in a type of
We
apartheid
do.
and have, and we don't choose that anymore. And we have higher expectations of ourselves and as this country. And I hope as this wound is opened and multiple wounds have been opened, that we do let this out and we have a new way to talk about it in a healing, loving way. That is our power for sure. So, thank you for being here, Simon. And thank
Thank
you,
you.
listeners, for being here. And I do hope that you appreciate this by showing your support, by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to Anxiety Simplified. And please share this with somebody you think this could help today, even in a small way. And remember to really practice some of these skills that we share today. That so it can just bring more happiness into your life. Or contact us through anxietysimplified.net, or to find out more how maybe an emotional support animal or a certified psychiatric service dog could bring that joy or help to lower your anxiety as we go into this world to really feel the calm. So, bye for now. And we look forward to hearing your views and hearing more.